What's up, gamers? How you doing? My name is John. Thank you for tuning in. I want to talk about the Intellivision Amico. It's been a hot mess, the whole situation. The system was going to be coming out. It was, supposed to play for like E for Everyone games, kind of family-friendly content, and it doesn't look like it's going to come out. So I'm going to refer to it as it was, as in past tense intentionally, because I'm not extremely confident that the system's going to see light of the day, unfortunately. Now, here's the deal. I have a unique perspective on the situation because I've kind of lived through this whole hot mess years ago with, for those who may remember, it was called the Chameleon, the Coleco Chameleon more specifically. My company and I, Colecovision Games, were involved in the sense that we were planning on releasing some of our games or porting some of our games over to the Chameleon. One of those games in particular was City Hunter and the Caverns of Death. At the time, Mike Kennedy was in charge of the Chameleon. Mike Kennedy, to me, has a lot of parallels with Tommy Tallarico, who was in charge of the Amico, right? In the sense that Mike at the time, he was on my podcast, which we talked about Colecovision products. He had a website called Game Gavel, which was essentially like an eBay for gamers. He ran Retro Magazine at the time. He was one of the board members for Classic Gaming Expo out in Vegas, which was a show held every other year out in Vegas, a really fun show that's now defunct. So he had some good reputation, I would say. There was no reason for me to believe that he was going to be deceitful, was going to lie, and he kind of reached out to me and Colecovision Games at the time and said, "Hey, John, it'd be cool if you port." He knew we were in game development. He's like, "It'd be cool to port some of your games over to the Chameleon." So I was seriously bought in, not like financially, thank God, but I was emotionally bought into the console, right? And I really wanted it to succeed to the point where I had, when shit was hitting the fan. I had Mike on my YouTube channel here. I've since taken the video down, but I made the mistake of just doing an interview with him. And, looking back, it was a really dumb decision. And, no one is perfect. Certainly, I'm nowhere close to perfect. And that was just a really bad mistake on my end. People called me out for it, including Pat and Ian and all that good jazz, right? So I've been through this situation, and this is now happening with the Amico, which, on a side note, interesting enough, for those who don't know, amico, it's actually it's an Italian word meaning friend. I'm learning Italian. It's a beautiful language on a side note. But anyway, Tommy was in charge. Now, Tommy, just like Mike, had a pretty good reputation in the gaming community, right? He was a music composer, wrote a lot of some music for some great games, and really there was no reason to believe that he would basically go down the same path as Mike, and he was so willing to release the console that it was almost to the detriment of the console, right? So, unfortunately, now there's a big stark difference between the Chameleon and the Amico in the sense that, in my situation, thank God no one put backing behind it financially, other than Mike, right? So Mike lost his shirt, I'm sure, financially. However, there was no pre-orders. They did try to do a Kickstarter, it failed. They may have done it like an Indiegogo, again, it failed. So no one lost any money. I didn't put any of my personal money into the company. Again, I was only involved in as far as a developer standpoint, right? We're going to release some games, and someone comes out to you and says, "Hey, John, we want to port some of your games over to our console." And like at the time, Mike was telling me that this is when Toys R Us was around, of course. But he was like, "Yeah, we signed it. We're signing a big deal with Toys R Us. We're going to have the Chameleon in all the Toys R Us's, and that was a big deal, of course." And all these stories ended up being lies, right? And then little did I know that, and I was so blinded the fact, again, I was so invested emotionally into it that I wanted to believe it, to the point it was really a detriment to people who followed my channel, and it was unfortunate. And again, I learned my mistake. Now I feel like this is happening again with the Amico. Now Pat and Ian, their podcast, Pat the NES Punk, Pat released a video about a week or so ago where it was a kind of Christmas themed video, and he did kind of a spoof, and by the way, it's kind of well edited and kind of funny. And he did a parody, and he was kind of calling out some YouTubers, right? He was calling out Smash JT. He was calling out John Riggs, who's a good friend of mine. Brett Weiss, also a good friend of mine, and and basically call him out. And then he did a follow-up video, and him and Ian were complaining, and rightfully so. I mean, they were pissed at some of these YouTubers. Some of these YouTubers I don't know, frankly, but some of them were calling them names and taking it personal and attacking Pat and Ian, which is dumb. I've never, like, publicly, to my knowledge, really called out Pat and Ian, and that's not really my personality. If I had done in the past, maybe it was just like spur of the moment, but certainly Pat and I have like mend up, and I called him. So at the time, basically go back in time when the whole thing was Chameleon was happening, I actually reached out to Pat personally. I called him on his cell phone. I said, look, we talked, we hashed it out. I apologize for doing that video and kind of explain my side of the story. Because look, there's always two sides of the story, right? And so I know deep down, like, I thought I was like in the right because I knew like my intentions were sincere, right? And it always had been. And then, so anyway, I hashed things out with Pat. I didn't do like a video and like call him out. And so I kind of feel, and I want to give some advice for some YouTubers who are in this situation where, they've been called out from Pat. And look, I mean, they don't need to take my advice, but I wanted to do a video, and I was kind of debating even if I should do this video, to be quite honest. And one of the things that my advice, something I had learned for those who are going through the same situation, whether it's through this situation or just in life in general, it's a never good thing to add fuel to the fire or to the drama, in my opinion, right? Life's too short for that kind of stuff, right? So my situation, I kind of man up, and it was hard. It was a hard pill to swallow. I called Pat. We hashed it out. I have no ill will towards Pat and Ian. I mean, they said some stuff about me that were frankly not true, and but it is what it is. It was in the heat of the moment. I get it. I mean, their channel, they talk about hot topics, right? Which good for them. They've grown the channel in doing that. I've met them several times. They've come out to Game On Expo, which is a show I run in Phoenix, several times. I met them most recently in Portland Retro Gaming Expo in October of last year. We're very cordial. They're certainly welcome to come back to Game On Expo. I mean, there's no ill will towards them at all. On the other side, I see the other side as well, right? I see with Brett and John, I kind of see what other channels were, Smash TV, while they were so dedicated. Some of these channels literally invested thousands of dollars into it, right? In the case of Smash TV, he invested $1,000 into the Amico. And he even come out and said that he was in the wrong, and he realizes that the system's probably not going to come out, and he would have the wool over his eyes, like what happened to me, right? But my advice to those folks is the worst thing you can do right now is get defensive, and the worst thing you can do is call out Pat and Ian and call them names and going back and forth. That is certainly not good for the community. That's not going to help. You are not going to change people's minds at this point, opinions of you, right? I'll be honest, I lost a ton of subscribers when that stuff, Chameleon stuff happened. And even since then, I'll be truthful right here, like my channel has not grown. It was growing really, really fast up to that point. And then after that, it's kind of plateaued. I've learned to deal with that. It is what it is. I don't know if it's the Chameleon thing. I mean, people's interests change. I've kind of focused more time on my Game On Expo and Colecovision Games and other projects anyway. And I still love my channel, don't get me wrong, but it's not I mean, this channel is great. It's a hobby. I still have my full-time job, right? So it's not like this is my everyday paycheck to paycheck kind of situation, right? And so I've kind of learned to step back. I've learned to get away from the drama. It's a never good thing to be involved in the drama, right? I mean, my channel's never been about drama. I'm not a clickbait kind of channel. I don't do videos to talk about hot topics because I certainly could, and I'm sure I could get a ton of subscribers doing that, right? But when I do that, then they're going to do a video and go back and forth, and it's not good for everyone because when people do these videos, they only share their side of the story, right? And people are going to believe what they believe, right? People who follow Pat and Ian are going to believe their side of the story, right? And when there's actually two sides of every story, there's always two sides of every story. My story back with the Chameleon was, I told you, I mean, I was working with Mike. I thought things were good. I end up things are bad, not so good. I pretty much haven't talked to Mike since that's happened. I don't even know where Mike is at this point. I don't have any ill will towards Mike. I did at the time. I was really bitter and I was really upset with Mike because I felt like I was stabbed in the back. Now, thank God, I think my reputation's recovered, right? I don't think people look at me and I'm sure there's some people who hold grudges, whatever, but those who know me deep down, I know those who have worked with me, whether it's through my channel here, who've met me, who've worked with me at Game On Expo or with Colecovision Games, the development side, they know that I really put people above me in many cases, right? I love the relationships. I mean, relationships and treating other people the way they would be treated is super important to me. That's kind of my values of how I live life, essentially, and that's super important to me. But just want to share my story. At one point, Tommy had reached out to me, Tommy Tellerico, and he was like, hey, John, we'll do City Hunter and the Caverns of Death for the Amico. But here's what we want. We want you to like hand draw the graphics like Cuphead. Basically, we want you to redo the music. It was a lot of work, but even then, I reached out to my team at Colecovision Games, and we're like, even if we could, I mean, it would be a lot of money and time to do that, but even if we wanted to, we decided to pass, to be honest, because we learned our lesson with the Chameleon. We certainly didn't want to go down that path again. I've done a couple videos in the past on the Amico. I think my most recent one was posted like 10, 11 months ago with my good friend Jeffrey Whittenhagen. And we basically talk about like how both of us even then thought that the Amico wasn't going to come out. They have not officially said that the system's done, right? You can still go to the website, you can still pre-order them, the systems and consoles. The reputation is tarnished though, to be honest. And that's kind of the sad thing at the end of the day, is you have the Colecovision brand, the Intellivision brand, which are iconic retro gaming brands. And because of the Chameleon and because of the Amico, those names and brands have been hit. Keith Robinson, who used to own Intellivision, he's rest in peace. The man has passed away, unfortunately, several years ago. He was the first guest at Game On Expo year one, 2015. He came out, flew in, I picked him up, we went to Firehouse Subs, and one of the nicest guys you will ever meet, honestly. And I know he's probably rolling in his grave, seeing the situation, seeing the name get dragged through the mud as it's happening now, which is unfortunate. Now, the irony of it all, right, is the people who are getting defensive with Pat and Ian and calling them out and calling them names, my opinion, they're getting mad at the wrong person, right? They're getting mad at Ian and Pat, saying it's their fault. Ian and Pat are very opinionated, and that's just their channel. That's who they are. It is what it is, right? They shouldn't take their aggression out of them. What they should do is take their aggression out on Tommy. Honestly, if anything, they should be mad at the people with Amico who are making the decisions, these poor decisions. I mean, the parallels are crazy, right? I was invited to Toy Show, the New York Toy Show, back in when the Chameleon was coming out. Thank God I didn't go. That was the weekend where, people looked at the back and they found out it was basically a Super Nintendo console in a Jaguar casing. And that was a huge debacle. So thank God I didn't end up going to that event. But again, like same kind of thing with Amico, like there's probably Raspberry Pis in that thing playing with the demos. I don't know. I wasn't there. I don't know a whole bunch of backstory, but it sounds a very similar situation. And I think ironically at the whole point, like Pat and Ian from the kind of very beginning, they were very skeptical of both consoles, right? And they got other people very skeptical. If we had a time machine and the system was off a better start, would the system see the light of day? Was it the negativity in the gaming community that really made Tommy, made Mike wanted to do what they did, so much so that they felt like they had to take, shortcuts and cheat to get to where they want the finish line? Ultimately, it blew up in their face, both situations. It's hard to say. I mean, everyone has an opinion. No one's blaming Pat. I'm not blaming Ian on the situation. I think overall, I really wish this would kind of settle down. I think it will. Time does heal all wounds, essentially, right? I really wish people who invested in the Amico do get their money back. I'm not confident they will necessarily. I hope they do, especially in Smash JT's situations, put a ton of money, invest in the company. It's a lesson learned at the end of the day, right? So I'm not here to do the video to pick sides. I'm not here to say I'm team Pat and Ian. I'm not here to pit team other YouTubers who are supporters. There is nothing wrong with supporting a console, right? One thing I'm really proud of, though, at the end of the day, is a couple years ago, ColecoVision Games, my company and I, we released a console called the ColecoVision Phoenix, which is essentially a ColecoVision FPGA ColecoVision that can also play Atari 2600 games through SD slot. But anyway, we worked our ass off on that project. It was a very small, very niche project. We did pre-orders to the website. We fulfilled them. We shipped them out. People got their consoles. When we did pre-orders on the website, it crashed our website both times we did waves for it. Both times it crashed our website. The demand was extremely high. We're hoping to release more. Right now, we're talking to some companies to try to do like a third party to where they can manufacture it, because Toby, my business partner, ColecoVision Games, was literally putting those systems together by hand at home. It was extremely a lot of work. It's very expensive. There's no markup on those. We didn't make any money on those consoles. We make money on the games, just like most consoles, right? The game sales. So who knows? Hopefully we can make some more. But I'm going off on a tangent. I'm just kind of curious on what you guys' thoughts are on the Amico. I just wanted to see some of the drama die down a little bit. I mean, I kind of wish I'm a little bit naive, but I kind of wish we all get along a little bit better, right? But it is what it is, hopefully things will get better for everyone. Thanks for subscribing, guys. Thanks for leaving a comment. Let me know what you guys think. Thanks for liking this video. We'll see you guys soon. Take care. And of course, game on.